get a lot of questions about how to use D Limonene to kill off bacterial overgrowth in the digestive tract. So I wanted to make a quick video and talk about who should use this, which scenarios where it may be really beneficial, the ways to make it really the most effective, and who should really avoid using D Limonene. Let's jump in.
T.C. Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So I'm not a doctor, so I'm not advising you whether you should use D Limonene or not, but I wanted to share some insights that I found when I was doing some research on D Limonene, and I'll link some studies in the description below this video as well. But D Limonene is basically just orange peel extract. So it's a natural solution for a lot of things, and a lot of people that want to lean a little bit towards that natural side are attracted to using D Limonene. But it's used a lot as like a food additive or even like a flavoring agent or an industrial cleaning solvent when somebody wants to use something a little bit more on that natural side. But it's most popular for acid reflux. And let's understand why that is a little bit. You know, there's a lot of people that will tell you, oh, this orange peel extract, it kind of floats to the top and it'll coat the esophagus and make it feel better and all these things. But I feel more like it's about its ability to wipe out some bacteria that can exist in this stomach. So really, we know that reflux is usually about a lack of stomach acid. It doesn't come from too much stomach acid like advertisers want us to believe. There's a valve at the bottom of this esophagus called the lower esophageal sphincter that opens so food can come in. And then once that food is acidifying in the stomach, that acid should trigger this valve to close so it doesn't come back up and burn us. So if someone just has a small amount of acid, but it's not enough to trigger that valve to close, then that small amount will come back up and they get reflux, and man, do I hate that. So we find that by increasing stomach acid, you have the ability to improve a lot of acid reflux issues. But a lot of times this stomach is not acidic enough because of bacteria like H. pylori or all these other types of bacteria that can come in and set up camp in the stomach when there's not enough acid there to fry them when they come in. That acid is like the barrier to that intestinal tract. It keeps all the bad varmints out. So when there's not enough acid, something can come in there and set up camp. And then a lot of times the waste product from that bacteria can be even more alkaline, making the stomach even more alkaline and restricting their ability to really acidify the food and trigger that valve to close correctly. So it appears that what D Limonene has the ability to do is to kill off some of these types of bacteria. And I'll put some links in the description below if you want to dig into that a little bit better. So if the D Limonene is coming in and killing off this bacteria, not only is that reducing that alkaline waste that the bacteria is putting out, but those bacteria can also put off gases, and those gases can create pressure that pushes stuff back up. Maybe this valve is closed a little bit, but when that pressure really magnifies, that force can push through that closed valve and create more reflux. So this could be another reason that this D Limonene is helping to improve these reflux type symptoms. And this is really the reason that we use it with clients. We use it when we suspect some type of overgrowth in the stomach that's really magnifying a lot of bloating symptoms or reflux, or maybe it's alkalizing the stool so the stool moves slower and then they create constipation issues. So we like to use it in that regard, but we want to look at the effects. If the effect is to kill off some bacteria, then if someone has a major bacterial overgrowth, then the reaction that they could have could be significant. So we want to look at how much should we take and think about the effects that it could have. So if I have a client that has some significant issues like a lot of symptoms with bloating or a lot of reflux symptoms, I might start them off with a really small dose. You know, you usually buy them in either 500 milligram dose or 1,000 milligrams in a gel cap type thing. And if a person takes 1,000 milligrams and they kill off all this bacteria at once, it can create a lot of discomfort from that die-off, from killing off that much at one time. So a person can really feel lousy and like, oh man, that made me feel worse. I can't take that. That doesn't help me. But the reality is they just didn't understand that they were killing off too much at once and it was creating a lot of discomfort. Usually if the person can fight through that, by the time they get to the second, third, or fourth dose, these symptoms will really improve because they really have reduced a layer of that bacteria in the stomach. So for the first dose, I might have a client like, oh, if you have a 500, maybe just start with that. If you have 1,000 milligram, maybe you like poke a hole in that gel cap and like squeeze half of it out into the sink so that what you're taking is really half of that dose, and start off a little bit easier. So it also seems to be more effective to take this on an empty stomach, like right when you wake up in the morning. But if you don't want it to be more effective the first time that you do it, a person could take it with their breakfast. And maybe that will make it a little bit less effective, and that way they're not killing off so much and creating some type of reaction. Again, if a person doesn't have a lot of symptoms, maybe they just have a little reflux, it's probably going to be fine. The most that they're going to experience are these orange burp things. Like you just burp up and you're like, oh, I don't remember eating oranges, but you're taking that orange peel extract, so that's the flavor that can come back up when you burp. And that's the extent of the symptoms that most people are going to experience. But we want to look at severe cases so that if a person takes it and really feels lousy, they want to understand why. And if you get that die-off reaction, you understand, oh wow, I killed off a whole lot and that really made me feel lousy. It's likely that the next dose, maybe it won't feel as bad, but you'll still feel some discomfort. And by the time you get to the third or the fourth, it's probably going to be a whole lot better. And as far as the timing goes, one thing we want to understand about D limonene is that it appears to have a pro-catabolic effect. And to understand this a little bit, we need to look at the fact that it was Dr. Emmanuel Rivisi who helped us understand that the body has this natural circadian rhythm at the cellular level. So during the day, the body should be in this catabolic state where it's very good at creating energy and keeping us going all day, but also like breaking down tissues so that they can be rebuilt and renewed. And then at night, the body should move into this anabolic state where the body's very good at sleeping and rebuilding and repairing things. So both of these states are appropriate. The problem is some people will get stuck in one of these states most of the time, or they'll be pushed way too far into one of these states. And if they're stuck in one of these states, it can create a lot of symptoms. Like if someone's stuck in this catabolic state, it can create issues like insomnia, and it can create loose stools because of how the body is sending more water to the bowels and less to the kidneys when it's in this state. It can magnify insulin resistance. It can make it to where the body's kind of just breaking itself down all the time. Now, there's other causes that can create most of these symptoms. So just because a person has these symptoms doesn't mean that they're overly catabolic. You really want to look at a person's body chemistry to get an idea. Are they leaning too far in one of these sides, or are they moving back and forth from day to night like they're supposed to? So if you don't know how to do this, my book, Kick Your Fat in the Nuts, teaches you how to run simple self-tests at home with tools you can pick up at like a pharmacy or a health food store. And the book is available on Amazon, but I'll put a link in the description below so you can get the whole thing totally for free, and that'll walk you through how to look at this and figure out, am I leaning too far on one side? So the reason this can be important when it comes to D limonene is because if D limonene is pro-catabolic, if someone's already really stuck in that catabolic state where maybe they just can't sleep, or the body's just falling apart, or they're having some other type of symptom that can come from that imbalance, taking D limonene could really magnify all of those issues for them and make them much worse. So a person really wants to know where they are before they create a lot of trouble. And in most cases, we like to see people take this every other morning, just because it seems to be a more aggressive way to kill off bacteria. And if it's really pro-catabolic, a person not taking it every day is going to have less of a pro-catabolic effect. So if they're leaning a little bit too far in that direction, taking it every other day can be a little more gentle of a way to take that same approach. Now, if someone saw that they really had an anabolic imbalance and they were leaning way too far on that anabolic side, and that imbalance was creating a lot of trouble, well, maybe they could take D limonene every day, and not only could it increase the ability to kill off bacteria, but it may help that imbalance a little bit too. So it's really nice to know where you are instead of just throwing things into the wind and seeing what happens. Now, the frequency of it could depend on where you are there. And we really like to see people take this in the morning when the body should be in a more catabolic state. That's when the body should be in that state. So you want to work with your body's natural circadian rhythm and take pro-catabolic supplements earlier in the day. So you're not pushing your body into a catabolic state when it should be in that more anabolic state at the cellular level. Now, people ask, how about taking this with other things? If I'm going to take this in the morning on an empty stomach, what if I'm using other things to try to kill off bacteria as well? Because you really want to know that D limonene is not going to be magic. It can be very effective, But a lot of these bacterial overgrowths are really aggressive and it's really hard to wipe them out or at least get them under control a little bit. So most people will end up needing to use more than D limonene. And we have other videos where we talk about using things like mastic gum and celery juice. So a lot of times people will say, well, when do I use D limonene according to mastic gum and celery juice if those things need to be on an empty stomach as well? And we hear from people who do all of them, in the same time in the morning and they do okay. Some people, it might be too much at once and too aggressive of an approach and may really make them feel lousy from that die-off. So one method could be that a person, maybe they use mastic gum on one morning and maybe they use the D limonene the next morning. Mastic gum does not appear to be pro-catabolic like D limonene is, so a person could use mastic gum on an empty stomach at other times of the day, maybe in the afternoon or maybe before bed or something like that. Celery juice, since it's liquid, will move through your stomach pretty quick. So I like to see people, maybe they do celery juice first thing in the morning and then maybe 20 or 30 minutes later they can do D limonene. Or maybe you have D limonene sitting by your bed and right when you wake up you just take it and then you sort of go through your day and get ready, and by the time you've taken celery juice, it might be 20 or 30 minutes later. So you can really feel those things out. Just know that I don't know of a reason not to do multiple things together when it comes to D limonene. It doesn't seem to reduce the effectiveness of the D limonene. There are people who feel like celery juice is more effective when it's by itself and it's not mixed with other things, so that's something to consider. But I hear from people that do all three at the same time and they seem to still get good results. It's also my opinion that the D limonene seems to be more effective at killing off bacteria in the stomach. Like some people feel like since it's kind of like a solvent, it has the ability to kind of seep into that mucus layer and kill off bacteria where they hide. And I don't know that it gets as far down into a small intestine type thing. So for a SIBO type situation, D limonene can help, but it seems like other things like the mastic gum, celery juice, and a lot of these other antimicrobial steps that people take to kill off SIBO seem to be more effective. And we'll put links in the description below for our videos on how to take care of SIBO if you want to dig into that a little bit better. But this also may be why the D limonene is so popular with acid reflux, because I think a lot of times it's bacteria in the stomach that is really magnifying those symptoms like we talked about. So if you've had experience with D limonene, let us know in the comments how it went. And if you want to learn more about using things like mastic gum, you can jump over right now and check out our video on how to use mastic gum to wipe out bacteria. I can't wait to hear about your results.